What is up, everyone? Welcome to L2R2 PlayStation Podcast. My name is Fonzie. I'm joined by my co-host, Cal Monroe from across the pond. Cal, it's been a minute. How you been these past couple weeks?
Very good. Very festive and Christmassy. And by that I mean eating lots of food.
Yeah.
And drinking lots. So on that kind of that knife edge where you're trying to turn around your end of the year kind of lack of motivation and try and get back to some normality. Been back at work for a week, which has been difficult, but trying to just start the new year and knuckle down, because it's very easy to get lost in the kind of end of the year festivities where you kind of just put everything off to the next year.
Right, so now it's just like back to work.
Of sort of living up to your promise to yourself that you made when you decided that you were going to do nothing for the rest of the year. So I think everyone's in that kind of like same limbo, trying to like be normal people again. But yeah, it's I had a really nice time seeing family, and nice to see the back end of another kind of questionable year. But how was your festivities?
It was good. Yeah, hung out and same thing, ate a bunch of food, and I'm in the same. Well, I'm in the boat where, and it happens every year, where it's like I know I need to go back to the gym, but also don't want to do it when everyone's doing it 1st of January. Doing the New Year stuff. But also, why do I care? It's like as long as I'm in there, but I just don't want to be that dude like everybody else that's going in there. But at the same time, like who cares? You're in the gym. You got there. But I find excuse after excuse, like it snowed a bunch, so I just keep adding to the list of like, and then my shoulder hurts today for no reason, so I'm like, maybe I shouldn't go. I don't want to stress that. Maybe talk to the doctor or something. But it's been good. Overall, it's been good.
But that's the thing about living, somewhere where the winters are cold and the summers are warm. This time of year, you don't really want to start anything like, well, for me anyway, exercise related, because it's just too cold.
Right.
I just don't want to leave the house at the moment, just because of the weather. But I mean, actually saying that, today was lovely. It was a really nice day today after a pretty stormy few days. But yeah, I think that definitely doesn't help. Trying to like regain your motivation when it's freezing. You don't want to get out of bed and it's very bleak weather. So hopefully, as things start to lighten up as well, it should make these New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, and I'll see plenty of like either on Instagram, TikTok, people are like, oh, if you're stuck at home, here's a list of 10, workouts you can do, body resistance workouts. And I'm like, just get out of my face. It's like I made my choice to not go anywhere, and I'm at home, leave me alone. So it's like, yeah, I could do stuff at home. It's just, come on, give me a break.
It doesn't work for like, I live in like a block of flats, so I can't be jumping around, and I'll either, I'll get a big complaint from the person below me, or I'll fall through into their apartment. So it's even more difficult when you can't really do I guess I could do some. I'd have to try and figure out like what's underneath me and what times to do them. But yeah, it's not like I think on paper it sounds like the best alternative to not wanting to go out and do anything, but even then it's still difficult. The exercise is the horrible part, I think, is what it boils down to.
And you can find like there's planks you can do where you're just basically, I don't know, like laying down, you're perpendicular with the ground and you're holding yourself by your elbows. And that is a kick in the ass for sure. And you're just positioning yourself there, so you don't have to jump around. And it's crazy how, if you want to feel out of shape, try doing that for like 30 seconds. And it's nuts because you're using your entire body, and it's terrible. But yeah, you don't have to jump around or anything. That's another workout that I saw that was pushed on me online that I didn't want to see. But yeah, that's one.
Yeah, I think this kind of Christmas period has been the first time where I've really noticed that like I've been eating a lot and packing on some pounds. So I think that's always like a nice way of kind of being like a reality check where you're like, right, you've engorged too much now. It's time to try and make sure you don't like have 5 years left to live.
Yeah. And I can't wear hoodies for the rest of my life. It's like I find myself just finding the loosest clothing right now just to make myself feel normal. But it's tough, man. But yeah, besides working on stuff, did you get to play any games this week or these over the break?
Since yesterday, I've been playing through the Mass Effect trilogy, which is which is now on Game Pass, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, so I've been mostly glued to that, as you could expect.
I see. Yeah, I saw that was on Game Pass, and yeah, they have just every couple of weeks. It's always some great addition, and I have no excuse now to play it now that it's on Game Pass. It's a big commitment to jump in, but I do got to try and jump in on there. I also jumped into Fallout 3 a couple of weeks ago, and I had the same urge just to jump back in. I just hate the beginning. It's so slow. I just want to jump into the
Yeah,
open world, and I never have a save ready to go where I can just like start playing. So it's kind of a bummer, but
yeah.
it's a great game.
Yeah. Fallout 3 is great. It's been really nice to get back to it, and it's been long enough for me to forget some things. So like some, especially like when it comes to like the humor and on like the different terminals and things. If you explore and read everything, um, there's lots of. It's just such a great game. There's not many things with such like character like that anymore. But Mass Effect, playing through, because obviously I played Mass Effect quite recently for the first time on PC, and I really didn't enjoy the first one. But replaying it through with all the work they've done to it, it's just an absolute joy. Like just completely addicted to it again. Already, even though I only played it through recently for the first time, it's already like a completely different experience. Speaking to different characters, taking a bit more time with it as well, because I kind of rushed through it the first time, and now I'm actually enjoying it. I'm able to take my time and get to see a bit more things, and just similarly to the first time I played it, I'm just super excited to get through to 2 and 3 as well, because they are far better, and also is where you can start to see your choices taking effect as well.
Yeah, I know. We had covered kind of with the news surrounding that remaster or remake, and they seem
Mm.
to had improved that first game with just the combat. There's the traversal with that vehicle, and just the overall pacing. And it seems, yeah, like they nailed it. Going back to it and kind of fixing those issues people had with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's been really nice to play that, and also sometimes you're not sure how much a game's going to grab you, especially if it's one you've played fairly recently within the past sort of year or two. And yeah, it's just completely hooked on that again. And the only other thing probably worth mentioning is I played through the Gunk, which is obviously not on PlayStation, but it's something I played over the holidays as well.
I played maybe about 3 hours of the Gunk as well. I saw you had posted about it, and it was something that was on my radar too. And it's a pretty neat game. Like it's kind of it's easy to fall into it and just start cleaning stuff and trying to travel through the world a bit more and unlock stuff and the visual quality is really nuts. Like it looks really good. I thought the story was pretty interesting. Like the characters are cool. The actual
Yeah.
models of everyone is really unique. I don't know if that gameplay, how long it lasts with cleaning up the Gunk. I know they kind of mix some platforming puzzle stuff in there, but did you finish it? What did you think with it?
Yeah, I finished it, and yeah, it just. I think what I really like about it is so much variety in the place you go to, and like you said, the platforming puzzles are slowly introduced to it, and towards the end, it becomes a really the main part of the game. I don't think cleaning up the Gunk is as much of a effect from the trailers and things. It's a lot more puzzle based as well, but it is simple enough to just sit there and play through it. And like you said, something that really surprised me was the characters were great. The story was nothing crazy, but it was really nicely told. I think the characters to keep you safe, and towards the end you start to learn things about the main character's got like a missing arm, they got like a bionic arm, and it kind of explains why the characters are the way they are, and it's just a really nice and easy digestible adventure that I just don't really think does anything wrong. I think it's just a really nice game, and it seems to hit all the right notes in all different areas of the kind of game it's trying to be, I think. And I was really pleasantly surprised, and it has even made me think about like branching out more on the different games that maybe I already own or that are on Game Pass or these different subscription services, because that's not a game I would generally see in play, but it definitely brought a lot of like maybe nostalgia for games that used to come out that maybe were really tight and told a nice little adventure story.
Yeah, now I was following some of the reviews when they came out because it was on my radar, and they were all kind of they're just average. Like I found that interesting. There wasn't a lot to take home from at least for like the big review outlets, but I thought it was pretty interesting. And I think of it's kind of weird where if you're a game that launches and you're just fine, it's kind of you get forgotten about, but you didn't do anything wrong. Like you were just saying, it's like they didn't have anything to really, become memorable, but it seems like it's still a fine experience. I remember at one point playing through it, and I liked the dialogue back and forth between your kind of your main hub person who's in the ship and then your main character. And as you start to, you have the same curiosity as your character, where it's like you want to kind of dig deeper into the world, and your main person on the line like wants to have lunch. And I kept thinking like,
Yeah.
oh, can I just go back, because I do want to have lunch with this person. I feel like they at least earn
Yeah.
that, but I don't know if you can, or
Yeah.
the game just keeps proceeding you forward, because I wanted to learn more about the world too.
Yeah, it definitely opens up a little bit. You find like different fast travel points that allow you to go back, and you got your upgrades and things. And yeah, there's just something really enjoyable about it that I found. And I don't know whether it's obviously not objectively like that for everybody else. Like you said, it reviewed kind of averagely well. There was nothing really I didn't like about it. To be honest, I just thought it was really well made. And you can tell it's kind of it does everything that it kind of sets out to, which I think sometimes there's not enough of games like that. They're always going for these like big 20-hour replayable things or games as a service, and it's just a nice game to kind of cleanse the palette of all the other kind of stuff that's out.
Yeah, it's funny. There's been a conversation in the past day or two with there is a Dying Light 2. It was they announced that the game has 500 hours of gameplay, not to just complete the storyline, but like to 100% everything. And there's been this kind of backlash with everyone saying, or at least adults saying like, hey, I don't want that. I don't want these 500-hour packed experiences. And this is the kind of game where it's the opposite of that, where it kind of knows what it wants to do. It's short, and it just kind of, you're in and out, and it has its identity kind of paced out, and the focus isn't this huge, expansive world where you have to sink a bunch of time into, and a lot of people are looking for that.
Yeah, I think more people are maybe speaking up about liking shorter games, or not shorter games necessarily, but more digestible experiences that don't require so much sort of work to be put into it. I mean, there's lots of games that are maybe really simple and perhaps weren't massively complicated to make that people still put hours and hours and hours into. But I think sometimes when games are just so big in scope, that's where there tends to be a lot of things that can go wrong. Things might get overlooked, or the game might not run quite as well as it could do, or a host of different things. But I think when you do have a tailored, not necessarily linear, but more simple sort of experience, then a lot of the times they can hit the mark in a much more effective way than these bigger games.
I think those games are fine. Like some of the criticism with at least the response with Dying Light saying that there's 5 hours of gameplay, it's not like you have to go and play 500 hours of it, and you can complete the storyline in a faster amount. So I think that's fine that that's there, but you're not forced to play it. So I did find that interesting with having that negative reaction where it's like, I don't want this. I don't want to have to play that long. You don't have to. You can play the single player. I imagine it's shorter, and then you're out. But if you want to complete everything, there is that full, expansive world where you can sink a ton of time into, and that's great. But you also don't have to do that. So I didn't see enough of that, like in the responses where people going, that's cool. I'm not going to play it for 500 hours. I'll play it for as much as I want, and then I'll be done. But yeah, there's another, continuing with the Xbox Game Pass, but there's another one on there I played over the break. It's called Exo One. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
I haven't, no.
It's really neat, and it's same kind of vibe where it's like you can jump in and you're just kind of cruising around in this game. So you play this, you're in this ship that looks like a flying disc that also turns into this spherical orb, and you're just kind of flowing through these alien worlds, almost like the game Flow on PS3, where it's kind of like you're just experiencing this, and you're using gravity to kind of propel yourself and jump around, and you can ride the air. There's also these really cool monuments and stuff around that you want to go and investigate, but you're just kind of moving around and flowing, and it's really cool. The sound is really dope. Yeah, it's just a game where you can kind of unplug and play it and jump out whenever you want, but it's really cool. I highly suggest it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I think especially when you're busy as well, it's nice to have games that, because as much as I try and play big games, like playing Mass Effect or whatever, I think it's important to have sort of smaller games that you can put on if if you don't quite have time to sit down and play, or if you just want something just to switch off to late at night or something, then I think it's important to find these kinds of games that scratch that itch. And I think Game Pass is perfect for that. The Gunk, or this game you're saying about, they're probably not games we'd probably buy, but the fact that they're there and they're free to try, essentially, I think is massive for games like that as well, because it is normally the kinds of games that maybe you wouldn't think about buying, or wouldn't necessarily come up or jump at you from a store. So it's one example of why Game Pass is so good and so important.
Yeah, and we covered before the break, there was rumors of PlayStation following suit with their own kind of subscription service that kind of competes with Game Pass. And the one thing I like about Game Pass is it feels like almost like you can kind of channel surf if you want. There's all these different flavors and vibes and moods for whatever you're into. So I can kind of just play around with, I'll jump in Exo One, the Gunk, and maybe, jump back into Halo multiplayer. It's like you can kind of just channel surf for whatever you're feeling. And it's a really cool thing to have in addition to these like big tentpole games. But I'm hoping Sony kind of follows with something like that. They do have we've talked about, they have their own kind of services that do somewhat compete. There is that baked in PS5 subscription that lets you play a lot of these classic PS4 games. There's stuff like that. But there's just something to be said about how Xbox has nailed this ability to jump in and play all this stuff that maybe you wouldn't buy flat out on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
All right, Cam. Well, we got some news we can jump into. You know what I did finally finish over the break was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Nice.
It's very good. I highly suggest getting into there. It's crazy beautiful. And one thing that pushed me to get back into it was I was watching Digital Foundry's kind of breakdown of the year, some of the best looking games, performing games that they were going through, and Ratchet was the number one for them. And so I decided just off of that, let me go back in. I was only like 3-4 hours away from the ending, and it's, man, just a really cool game. Love the platforming. It's crazy beautiful, and it's just fun. Like, it just feels like just bringing back that classic platforming from that genre is kind of gone by the wayside, and Insomniac just holding on its shoulders, and they're doing such a great job with it. It's just a blast to play, and there's plenty of stuff I could do to like 100% it, but I just kind of finished the campaign, and it was really, really fun. You got to get it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to play it. I think I've been saying I've waited so long, I might as well wait for it to go on sale, and I did see it went on sale for like £50, I think, but I think just because I've just got so much to play at the moment, and like I said, I've waited long enough now that there's none of that like fear of missing out or anything that you normally get when a new game comes out. So I'm happy to wait until the right opportunity arises, I suppose, and I don't know what that is, but hopefully I'll recognize it when I see it.
Yeah, same boat. Like, I was not in the mood necessarily when it came out, so I waited a good while to finish it, but I'm glad I did, because it's a blast. Maybe in the next drought of between PS5 games in this year, you'll pick it up if it's on sale. But yeah, it's really, really good. Played that. But we can jump into some of the news here, Callum. Start off with the first one. Some quick fire news. I just decided to include some stuff that we don't have to spend a bunch of time on, but stuff that happened over these past 2 weeks. They did announce the PS Plus games, which are out now. You got Dirt 5 on PS4, PS5, Deep Rock Galactic, PS4, PS5, and Persona 5 Strikers on PS4. Let's see the next one here. PlayStation Discord integration spotted in the wild. Some Discord users able to link their PSN account to Discord. Nothing beyond that, but data mining reveals that you'll be able to display what PS5, PS4 game you're currently playing through Discord. So that's a cool thing. Maybe I'm sure there's going to be other integration in the future, but at the moment, people have been able to find out that you can link these two things already. So that'd be cool. Let's see. Next one here, Death Stranding, Director's Cut, coming to PC in spring 2022. That's not a huge surprise. We already have the PC version of it, but that Director's Cut was apparently only on PS5. And, man, I forget if there was a PS4 release of that, or they're just calling the PS5 release the Director's Cut, I think is what happened. Possibly. Okay. Well, that's coming to PC. This next one here, if you want to load up this video, it's Uncharted, new trailer for the Uncharted movie. They showed off Sully's mustache. So you don't have to watch the entire trailer, but it's about 2 minutes, 11 seconds. It's at the very end of the trailer. They show off this mustache. The internet's been kind of freaking out about it, but why don't you load it up and let me know what you think about this?
Yeah, I think I saw it when it first came out as well. I think I don't know what it is. It's just something about this film. I'm just looking forward to seeing. I think it looks fun. Um, and yeah, I don't know what it is. Normally things like this, I just can't really be bothered with. But yeah, but I like. I'm a sucker for like swashbuckling treasure films like Indiana Jones and everything. And the Tomb Raider movies were pretty fun. So maybe this one will be as well.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat too, where it's that mustache is tough, and I thought I wanted that originally when they first put out that first trailer. There was no mustache shown, and now it's looking pretty rough, but maybe. And I like that they joke about it in the trailer too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm down to have some fun with this movie. I was kind of worried about Naughty Dog's kind of integration into it, but at CES that just happened, and we'll talk about the PSVR2 news. They had Neil Druckmann on talking about how they kind of have worked with the studio. So there is some, integration there, but they just weren't. Naughty Dog wasn't really talking about this movie, and I was kind of worried about whether they have any part in it. But so they're starting to now mingle and start to advertise it, so that's pretty good. But yeah, so you're not worried about the mustache, Callum.
No, I mean I can't really grow a mustache, so I'm not too sure what a good mustache. So maybe there's some like underlying subconscious sympathy there
Yeah,
from me to Mark Wahlberg.
yeah. Like give me a chance. It's hard out here to grow mustaches. Alrighty, Callum. This one was just interesting to me. So Drinkbox Studios launching new game, Nobody Wants to Save the World, on January 18th. Now it's coming to Game Pass. This one was just interesting to me because of their history with PlayStation. So Guacamelee on PS3 and Vita, and then they put out Severed on Vita first. So it's a time exclusive on Xbox. And when asked about the release on PlayStation, Drinkbox says, "We'd love to bring the game to other platforms in the future." Any thoughts on this? Is it just something that happens? These devs have these connections with these studios or with companies like PlayStation, and Xbox just comes around and offers them more money, and they just kind of go that direction.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're always looking for somebody to fund the project or support or give money for a project. So yeah, I don't think there's much to think of. I think in this sort of day and age, I think if you're really into games and playing everything that comes out, I think it makes sense to not have just a PS5 or just an Xbox. It's worth going with a PlayStation and a PC or an Xbox and a PlayStation or something like that. Because I think that we do see things like this and it's going to happen. But yeah, I'm sure it'll come to PlayStation at some point. And I imagine that it kind of gives these games like a second lease of life as well to do that. So you can kind of see why people choose to do these time releases as well. But I'm sure it will come to PlayStation. But yeah, it's nice. Again, this is a game that I think is perfect for Game Pass or PlayStation Plus if it ever comes to that in the future. Because as much as Guacameele's really really big, and this will definitely have an audience already that will be chomping at the bit to get this. I think it will probably reach an even bigger audience being on something like Game Pass.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we are seeing a lot of these games that first come out on Game Pass eventually come to PlayStation. Usually it's about a year or so, but we had the Medium eventually come to PlayStation. The Ascent, which I played a couple months ago, that's coming. I think that's just rumored right now, but that's apparently coming to PlayStation again. So yeah, we'll see this, I'm sure. And it's a matter of, I'm sure, Sony has done this with, say, Fall Guys, where they offered them whoever knows how much money to premiere their on PS Plus. Same way Microsoft does with Game Pass, but seems like Microsoft is backing up the truck a bit loaded with more money to offer these opportunities. And yeah, I mean, if you can launch with as many people playing your game as possible, especially if it's a new property, then that's the way to go. Now we got the next one here. Some great NFT news, Callum. So Konami celebrating Castlevania's 35th anniversary by selling NFTs. They announced that a couple days ago. Any thoughts on this? It seems kind of weird that no cool game presents for this anniversary, but they say, okay, we'll throw you some NFTs and see you later.
Yeah, I mean, I try and like not even look into this whole NFT thing. I'm not even sure if I still know exactly what they are beyond like the general common knowledge on them. But it's just it just reeks of not only like a kind of unethical perhaps way of making even more money than I didn't even know that they needed to make any more money than they already make by the current practices. But it's just starting to become like one of those pop culture things where just even the mention of an NFT is just so cringy, and you just kind of automatically think about all of the the kind of worst people that these conversations draw out. So yeah, it's I can't say I'm surprised by this happening, but yeah, it's a shame. I think that maybe they should read the room, and see that this isn't the way that the people who are like buying their games would like to see them go. But I know that there's also a kind of portion of people who think they're a good idea. But yeah, I would hate to get too close to what's going on to accidentally start caring one way or the other.
I'm in the exact same situation where, I follow it, but I don't have a feeling either direction. I don't have a dog in the race. So it's just something that I see. And what I take notice more online, reading Twitter like all day, every day, is that there's way more of a negative reception to these across the board. But the people that are into it, they're like, drank the Kool-Aid. They're fully support it. There's nothing wrong with them at all. It's very interesting to me. But a lot of these companies have now started following suit. I think Sega just recently said that they were looking into it, but they're not going to pursue it. So some companies do read the room, like you're saying, decide not to pursue it. There's the there's that dev recently with that post-apocalyptic game that's coming to Xbox. Stalker, yeah, they kind of reversed their situation. So, and some companies go, yeah, that's cool, we're gonna keep doing it, and it's there. But yeah, it's just very interesting to me. But we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's just going to like fall into like obscurity, like a lot of these kind of crypto related things do. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but it's just there's always something on social media or something, that that as soon as you see something related to it, it's just going to draw the worst kind of people. So I know that anything, no matter what your opinion is on NFTs and things like that, the fact that they're like creating the kind of hostile environment that it is, there's obviously something not good about them, because otherwise there wouldn't be so many people against them. So I know a lot of people come out and say, oh, if you're against them, it's because you don't know anything about them, but there wouldn't be this huge backlash if people were just like going off of like a hunch that they're bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's weird, and we're gonna hear more about them in this next year, so it's interesting, but don't know what else to say about them, but it's happening. Now let's move on to, we got CES 2021 2022 just happened, and PlayStation was there. They revealed some more details on the PSVR2, and I guess it didn't officially have a name, so now we have PSVR2 as the official name, which cool. And so I pulled up this tweet here from Benji Sales on Twitter. So it kind of breaks down some of the announcements made. PlayStation VR2 officially announced. We got 4K displays, OLED screens, HDR, eye tracking, 110-degree field of view, vibration in the headset, faux veted rendering, which I had to look up, and it's rendering where it's pretty crazy and I guess some headsets have it, but wherever you're looking, it will, and anything in your peripheral, it will kind of load less resolution textures. So it's almost like there's that pop in, or like the same thing, and it happens in normal games where it's like that FOV or whatever, or level of detail is what it is. That same thing just on your eye level of where you're looking. So PSVR2 supports that. Got 3D audio, new Sense controllers, which we know, and then they showed off a little bit of Horizon VR, Call of the Mountain, being developed by Guerrilla Games and Fire Sprite. We'll get into details, but how do you feel about seeing some of these details, and what do you think about PSVR2 so far?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I think it sounds really great. All of the technical announcements about it. I still think it's going to be difficult to compete with the Quest. I think, especially this holiday period, I think the Quest 2 is like one of the highest selling game related things. So it's going to be difficult because it's such a standalone device. A lot of people are going to have the PlayStation and the Quest, so they're really going to have to continue to announce things exclusive to this headset, I think, before I'm convinced, or I imagine most people with a Quest 2 are convinced. Horizon's obviously a massive one that to start that off, and I think it looks and will be great. So it's off to a good start for sure. I just hope to see I think a big one that's probably on most people's minds is Half-Life Alyx. I think if they can get something, some sort of deal to bring that to the headset, I think that would be a massive system seller, and would probably be the only thing. Speaking out of things that I know, exist, it could probably be the only thing that would sway me at the moment. But we never know what could be announced.
Yeah, same thoughts. Alex is a huge get, and hopefully they can work that out with Valve. And that's really, the big focus is going to be making sure that their dedicated software that only works on PSVR2 is enough to bring people over. I don't know if the original PSVR did that for me. I was always kind of watching on the wayside, maybe jumping in, but as technology advanced and you have Oculus enter the room that has this device that works standalone and with your PC, and that allowed me to play Half-Life Alyx without having to spend like a ton of money on a Valve Index. That's the way I'm kind of leaning. So it's now a crazy competitive market with Oculus in the mix compared to when PSVR original launched. So it's going to be really interesting to watch as this comes forward and we get more details. And the big one is the price too. But with what they showed of Horizon Call of the Mountain, have you watched this footage? What did you think? It's very short, but what do you think of seeing this footage here?
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think it's always difficult to capture VR gameplay and display it in that way, but I think just the knowledge of anything Horizon related in VR, and for it to be, is they've obviously got a lot of talent behind it and a lot of hope behind it to have it as the first official game to be announced for it. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be great, and I'm sure for a lot of people that will be enough alone to make them perhaps consider switching over to Quest or making it their first VR headset.
Yeah, they didn't announce that this is going to launch with PSVR2, so I don't know how long into its cycle this will release. But some news on that. So it's being co-developed by Guerrilla Games and Firesprite. Sony acquired Firesprite in September 2021. So Firesprite's known for the Persistence VR, Playroom VR. They made Run Sackboy Run on Vita, and then the Playroom that worked with the PS4 and PS Camera. So I looked back into some of the past episodes. So we talked about this back in February 2021. There was a rumor that Firesprite was working on this next VR franchise that were tied to a PlayStation well-known franchise because they posted a job looking for someone to work on that. So, but back then we didn't know what property it could be, and it turns out it was Horizon. This was the one when we were theorizing I felt less likely because you have to move around so much in Horizon. That's like, how's this going to work? But seeing the footage of Call of the Mountain seems like you're going to stay in that boat, and that makes sense with the locomotion issues of moving around in VR if you're stuck in there and you're just kind of on rails shooting at stuff and dealing with things. It'd be cool if you can kind of control the speed of that person who is driving the boat, and then you're just shooting off arrows and throwing bombs and stuff. But looks really cool. I'm very hopeful for this one.
Yeah, I think you've got to be with something that's already established that is something that would be awesome to move around in VR.
Now, I pulled up some sales data to kind of quantify like how much does PSVR need to sell, how much does it need to sell for. So here's some info on PSVR on the original. So as of January 2020, it sold 6 million units. So it launched in the US for $399 and Europe for £399. I think it's a little bit cheaper now. As far as peripherals go with Xbox Connect, they sold 35 million units to date. That was a $150 add-on device. You got Meta Quest, which I hate that that's now Meta and not Oculus Quest, but Meta Quest 2 has sold 10 million units from October 2020 to November 2021. So that's nuts as far as VR units. In the lifetime of PSVR, they've sold about 6 million. So that's pretty crazy. PS Vita has sold 10 to 15 million units, and they have decided to let that thing die. Valve Index has less concrete sales data. So they've sold an estimated 149,000 sets in 2019 alone, 103,000 which were in the fourth quarter due to the announcement of Half-Life Alyx, which buyers received for free. So it's interesting, but I wonder how much does this thing need to cost for Sony to make their quota? And it's very interesting because this thing needs the PS5 to function. They haven't concretely said it's not going to work with PS4, but right now they haven't said what the backwards compatibility is with it. But what do you think as far as the price we could expect, considering like the actual hardware specs that we do know of? How much do you think this thing is going to launch for?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because we don't as much as VR is popular, we don't have a host of VR. I mean, obviously, you have all your different phone ones or your sort of smaller, lower spec ones, but in terms of like gaming VR headsets, there's not very many coming out often, so it's difficult to gauge how these things are pricing, how they're depreciating, and because obviously the Quest 2 itself was cheaper than the Quest 1, uh, whilst being much or a better device. So we've got to expect that it is perhaps still lowering in cost of these things as the tech becomes more and more sustainable. But obviously, COVID again might change that as well. But yeah, I'm not sure. You'd have to hope that it's not. If it is to be more expensive than the first PlayStation VR was, and you've got to hope it's not extortionate in how much more it is. I think that number's going to be used as a comparison. The Quest is going to be used as a comparison. So yeah, I think it's difficult to put a number on it, but you'd hope around the mark of the initial PlayStation VR, because I think when you look at the kind of situations in which they were brought out, I think the PlayStation VR was probably about as high tech as this perhaps is. So yeah, I'd probably say around that same kind of price range.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they are going to be competitive with the pricing. Although the specs make me think that they're going for something that is more higher end compared to, say, the Oculus, with the 4K displays and a different like vibration in the headsets. So they do have a leg up by going that route, and then it's definitely cheaper than like say the Valve Index, which is $1,000, and you need a PC to play it. So they are in that realm there where that's some wiggle room. And then one aspect I didn't really think about, but a lot of people are very negative on the Facebook integration with Oculus, and I think they're starting to roll that back. I don't know if that's happened yet, but people just overall don't like Facebook and the integration into Oculus, and that gives Sony some points where it's like not tied to that at all. So there's some pluses there, but it comes down to the price, and the PS5 is already hard to find as it is. So if you have that tied to this super expensive add-on that can give you a VR experience, but then you have the Oculus, which can give you something that is still comparable, it's going to be tough. But I'm hoping that they can price this thing competitively to, actually be in the mix and not be this, $600 thing on top of your PS5. But it's really early to tell, too early to tell. But do you think we're going to see this thing release in 2022?
I'd hope so. I mean, we've got a lot of the year to go, so you're definitely. I think it'd be safe to hedge your bets on it. I mean, we'll at least see a huge amount more, I'd imagine, and if it is to be next year, then we'd hope, kind of earlier next year. But yeah, I think you make a good point as well about Facebook. I think that's going to be huge, and it's a real opportunity because Oculus is clearly the most popular device out there, but we've recently seen with all this new Meta stuff, and which is like universally detested. I think
Yeah.
I think stuff like that's only going to push gamers away from Oculus as a VR headset, but obviously at the moment there isn't really an alternative choice. So when the PlayStation VR2 comes out, that's going to be a real it's going to be really inviting to people who do maybe want to switch from the Oculus, but also to games companies making VR games. I think having Sony, who's obviously who works with probably 60-70% of the games industry, they're now going to be able to take pictures for these same VR games that otherwise would have to go to Oculus. So it's I think it's going to just be a great thing to have as an option. It's going to push everything forwards from a VR perspective, I'm sure, and also it shows how all in perhaps the industry is with VR, because it's still getting supported. We saw the Vita get completely abandoned, so to just get a second headset clearly shows how invested they are into this.
Yeah, I think that this does show for sure that Sony is interested in continuing with VR, obviously, but yeah, and it's also interesting where the original PSVR selling 6 million units. I don't think Sony needs to. They're not looking to outsell the Oculus, because the last entry didn't sell very much as far as compared to Oculus level. So since they're coming at it from that angle, they're not expecting to sell that many units. They just need to sell enough to kind of keep this thing alive. That makes me hopeful as well, because at the end of the day, I'm worried about this competing with Oculus. But if they kind of carve out their own area where this isn't the same kind of experience, it's not as lightweight as as underperforming, I guess. As Oculus does, this is kind of this next gen VR experience that is still approachable compared to like a Valve Index. They have some some possibilities there with succeeding, and I'm glad that they're still at the end of the day supporting this thing and not leaving it high and dry like the Vita. And I'm hoping they have the software to actually make me commit to this thing, because right now I have an Oculus, I have a PS5. I'd much rather just keep my Oculus, let it play with my PC and experience games that way. So it's very interesting. I'm hoping that they kind of keep this thing somewhat open, letting it work with PC. They have now a better relationship with launching games on PC. So maybe I'm a bit hopeful there, where if they can kind of allow this thing to work with your PC, that would have way more people interested in buying it, because it's not then tied to the PS5 like the PS4 was with PSVR. This thing does have a USB-C cable, so it's not this proprietary connection like the original PSVR was. So that makes me think that this thing could be working on your PC, and if not officially supported by Sony, people will figure out a way to work around it and let this thing work with your PC VR game. So I'm hopeful. But yeah, I am thinking we're going to see obviously more info about this, but I'm thinking this thing will launch in 2022. There is a next tidbit of news about it launching in 2022. So this here is from Game Rant. PlayStation VR2 to reportedly begin production soon. A Chinese supply chain source claims a company named Geotech, that's an interesting one, has landed a contract for PSVR2 production. This seems to track as Geotech previously partnered with Sony on components to its original PSVR and also supplies parts for the PlayStation 5. So possibly getting this thing already starting production soon. So maybe 2022 is the year. It's exciting, Callum. It's exciting. Do you think...
It'd be nice. It would be nice.
Are you foaming at the mouth to get this thing, or are you waiting for the software to make you interested in it?
I think it'll be great. I think it's a pretty surefire, thing. I think this is going to be brilliant. I'm sure the haptics will be great. They're going to probably like all the consoles and kit that comes out now. They've all got the greatest engineers working on them and everything. So I'm not worried from that perspective. It's just I need to see something that I know would be worth getting, because there's nothing as it stands, and I know it might sound a bit weird because we don't know much about the VR2, but as it stands, there's no reason for me to get one, because I have my Quest 2. I don't even ever really feel the need to use it on my PC, mostly because where my PC is not very, it wouldn't be very good for playing VR. But if games like Half-Life Alyx that I haven't played before and I haven't bought before, then that would maybe sway me amongst other things perhaps. But at the moment, happy it's been announced, happy it's coming, happy with everything everything that it says about it. But yeah, I'm not chomping at the bit to get one quite yet.
Yeah, same here. But it's I'm glad they're talking about it, and we're going to see more info about it this year for sure. So we got the next one here, Callum, is some drama that unfolded about Days Gone on the internet this week. Days Gone game director responds to Tsushima sales praise. At CES 2022, Sony praised Sucker Punch for Ghost of Tsushima, passing 8 million copies sold. Jeff Ross, the director of Days Gone, who's since left Sony, chimed in with this tweet. He says, at the time I left Sony, Days Gone had been out for a year and a half and a month and sold over 8 million copies. It's since gone on to sell more, and then 1 million plus on Steam. Local studio management always made us feel like it was a big disappointment. So this sparked a big debate or just conversation about Days Gone. Did it get enough love for what they try to do? And then eventually Sony deciding to not proceed with a sequel to Days Gone, and some of these lead people leaving Sony band eventually. So that was where it left, and people just talking about it. But then there's an update on David Jaffe's podcast. He had... let's see, I'm blanking on some of these names, but he had Jeff Ross on. So we got another update here from Game Informer, kind of encompassing the whole thing. In a recent live stream with former God of War and Twisted Metal director David Jaffe, Ross revealed that his source for the sales data numbers was a now defunct website called GameStat, which tracks PlayStation trophy data, as reported by PushSquare.com. Here's what Ross said. Where I got my data from, I had access to a lot of telemetry, and I could see stuff. And when we were at 5 million copies, the telemetry data was at 5.8 million. I was actually using an external website. I think they're offline now, but they were using trophy data, and it lined up with our internal telemetry data. So for me, it's like good enough. Ross then said that when leaving Sony, you don't necessarily get final numbers for a game sales. Ross also said as a creative director, he didn't have access to the complete and official Sony numbers. Cal, did you watch this unfold? How did you feel about some of these conversations with Days Gone sales?
Yeah, I saw the tweet, and I think it's quite a difficult one because I think even with the update, it's not very. He doesn't really go into detail about what he means by local studio management making them feel like it was a disappointment. Because some people are naturally. You don't know whether it's somebody being naturally pessimistic. Maybe that's a kind of trend in that studio or whatever. It's difficult to make a judgment on what exactly was said and why it was said or whatever, but from a kind of surface level, it seems like something that it's not something you want to have if you work really, really hard on a project. Then even if it is a failure, which Days Gone obviously isn't, or if it is a disappointment, then you don't want to make the people who worked on it feel that way, because at the end of the day, that doesn't take away all the work that went on it or anything like that. So it doesn't sound nice, but it's also a bit weird that to kind of off the back of like a Ghost of Tsushima thing bring it up. So I don't know. I know there's been quite a lot of drama from people who worked on Days Gone, so there's obviously something happened there, but it can be difficult to kind of understand exactly what was said or what is being said as well.
Yeah, it's super interesting and we don't know the details, but like it seems like Days Gone, just the development cycle was plagued with issues where it ended up taking longer than initially planned, which happens, in game dev. But then you have the way these creative directors felt about maybe it was a advertising level from Sony or promotion level from Sony where they just didn't put enough attention behind it. I wonder if Sony also they're really trying to make sure their first parties hit these like 9, 10 out of 10 Metacritic levels. And because Days Gone didn't get that initially, it also had issues with launch bugs and whatnot. They kind of felt this negativity toward it, or this is just, like you said, kind of just within the studio, them feeling like that was a reception from Sony. But it's very interesting that they also didn't have the actual sales data. So that was some conversations online with, you think that the internal studios would know how successful it is. Another way of looking at that is that maybe they keep that thing separate, the sales data separate from game development as it is, because they're kind of focused on just creating this thing itself. And then the financial side of things is just kind of separate from them. It's just not something that they are privy to or need to know, but you think they would be able to if they asked. But yeah, what do you think about the studios not knowing some of the sales data?
Yeah, it's quite bizarre. I think the sales kind of side of things is where for me it gets a bit more, just a bit weird, like a bit. That's where you start to creep into corporate things, and so yeah, it's easy to kind of hear about something like, oh, they weren't told about how much it sold and things, and then that's where you can start to conspiracize about studio management and things, and it makes it very interesting, especially in an industry where a lot of big game studios are publicly not ran well, or they don't have the best atmospheres at them. So it's easy to hear about these things and assume the worst. And I think that the whole Days Gone thing, I think enough has come out of whether it's a disappointment, with it being pitched for a sequel and now this. I think that there's clearly something has not gone wrong, but there's clearly a troubled kind of feeling about the development. Maybe it was really tough, and but you got to remember, these people go through the trenches with each other. Give or take the people who may leave halfway through a project or join halfway through a project, and this is what I mean. You never know; it could just be a bunch of throwaway comments or jokes that people make about difficult times, or when you look back at something that you worked hard on, and you might joke with a colleague, about how like you're super glad that it's over or something like that. So you don't know what kind of comments were made, but it's just you do kind of see Days Gone brought up in lots of conversations like this.
Yeah, I wonder a bunch about Days Gone, where if it was too close to Last of Us, with marketing, with just visually how it looks, as far as kind of building out Sony's portfolio of first-party games, but then it would have been, shut down or like told to take a different approach, I imagine, from Sony higher ups. But there's that aspect to it. There's also, you mentioned how it was kind of weird to kind of rain on Tsushima's parade, Sucker Punch's parade, with that announcement of Tsushima doing well. But I can also understand where if they already have this animosity within the studio with how they felt Days Gone was promoted, then you see Tsushima be now Sony's next darling that they're promoting for 8 million sales when Days Gone did that. I can see where they would be, feeling kind of negative on it. But I imagine that animosity isn't towards Sucker Punch as a studio because, studios are going to have each other's backs. And I don't think that they were trying to cast shade on them. It seems like more of, hey, Sony didn't promote us like this new property did. And, they felt negative about it.
Mm. Yeah, it's definitely understandable, and I think we've all been there where we want to say something, perhaps we shouldn't, but you have to just because you are, you feel so passionately about it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it necessarily, but yeah, it is a bit. There's definitely an angle you can look at it where it's just a bit like, sometimes you just don't really want to like make a positive into a negative, but you can definitely see why. You can see the irony in the tweet that he retweeted.
And I think these kind of comments take over the internet because the industry itself, game industry, is very secretive, with how you just hearing how people within studios feel. It's like you have to wait for them to leave and then years to go by before you get any kind of honesty. Even then still, it's kind of shrouded under like they just don't want to rub people the wrong way, or they want to still work with whatever company. So you just don't hear the honesty, but this is a industry based on people building these things, and they're going to have feelings as people do. And I just like that we got a little bit of insight on at least the reception within the studio of like how they felt about, Sony backing them up on this. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. But it's been super interesting to hear this unfold. There is, and I want to throw this to you, there is a little bit of tidbit on resistance tied to this thing. So I'll go forward with this, some of the news here. So more info from David Jaffe interview on his podcast. This is encompassed by PlayStationLifestyle.net. Former Ben Studio head Jeff Ross revealed that the studio had pitched an open-world Resistance game to Sony after the release of Days Gone. Ross also revealed that Sony themselves were interested in a reboot of Siphon Filter of the franchise, but that he had zero ideas on how to do so. Ultimately, Sony declined both pitches. Former Ben Studio head Jeff Ross revealed that the studio had pitched an open world. Okay, I just copied and pitched the same thing. Here's a quote from Jeff Ross. The pitch I was making was an open world Resistance would be fucking rad. All these open world loops that we figured out. It almost wrote itself with Resistance, where there's so many aspects of that property that kind of lends itself to open world gameplay, but they weren't interested in that either. And I don't know how well it sold, but yeah, they were interested in almost anything except for Days Gone 2. But how do you feel about almost getting some kind of Resistance open world game?
Yeah, it kind of makes me sad because hopefully that doesn't mean that there's nothing being done. But it's also quite nice to know that there are conversations about it going on. Whether even if they are negative or rejected, it's good to know that we're not the only ones who are thinking about it.
Although if this possible resistance game was pitched after Days Gone, I imagine that wouldn't be pitched with them knowing that there's another Resistance property happening. So that makes me think that there isn't anything right now, but at least stuff is getting pitched to Sony and they're hearing it, but they, for some reason, haven't heard the right pitch that makes them go forward. But
or maybe it got rejected because there's already one going. I don't know.
True.
That's just me being hopeful. But
right, exactly. No, yeah, but I think at the end of the day, Jeff Ross would know that there's this other property, and he wouldn't even bring up possibility of doing another Resistance if there's this other secret project going on. But yeah. I'm hoping that there is another one. But it's just an interesting insight to these games that are thrown out there to possibly get greenlit and they don't and end up coming to fruition. But I'm hoping that there's still a plan. The right studio pitches the right idea for Resistance or Killzone, because we can't leave these properties by the wayside. We always talk about it like every week. Yep, Callum. Alrighty, move on to the next one. So that was very interesting over the week. We got some more news drama with Kevin Levine. So I'm always thinking about him every couple of months because he started this new studio and it's been a while. And I always wonder, where's that game going? So we got some insight on this. So Kevin Levine's ambitious new game is reportedly in development hell. This is from TheVerge.com. According to Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, Levine's studio Ghost Story Games and its long-awaited debut project have been plagued by shifting design goals and an overambitious vision. It's not a new criticism of Levine, but it suggests that the game's nearly 8-year waiting period might not end anytime soon. Schreier's story indicates that Ghost Story was originally supposed to release a small game in 2017. The project was a sci-fi shooter set on a mysterious space station where 3 factions would respond to players' actions, but the project's scope was seemingly bigger than the 30-person team could handle, including a complicated dialogue system that would morph based on player choices. As of 2022, the project has apparently been rebooted multiple times and still has no name or release date. According to Bloomberg, part of the delay stems from Levine's mercurial management style and perfectionism. Like previous reports from his time at Irrational, it describes a place where projects would get suddenly overhauled or scrapped after months of work. Callum, how do you feel about hearing about this game not having any end in sight? And what do you think about Kevin Levine and some of the things tied to his work style?
Yeah, I think it's a real shame. I think this is clear that it could happen to anybody. Ken Levine's a big name. Obviously made some of the best games of BioShock, and it's a shame to see that he's having trouble with his new kind of direction that he's taken. But it is what it is. I'm sure he's no stranger to it. I mean, I'm sure that BioShocks went through pretty big upheaval as well, and they sort of went through lots of delays and changes and reboots and things along the way. So it's just a shame that it doesn't look like he's getting himself out of this hole, but you never know. Sometimes it does take years to shape what it is you want to do, and hopefully we'll see something from them at some point.
Yeah, I feel like this is where you need a good person on the project, producer, that is kind of reining you in on these different ideas and directions you're going, and kind of having someone that is stopping you from just creating without an end in sight, because Kevin Levine is, just a great mind in the industry, and I'm sure full of ideas and wants to follow all these different routes, which is great. But then you need someone who can also play on top of that and reel it back in and produce a game at the end of the day. I think of there's the God of War documentary that came out a while ago, where they talked about that kind of ebb and flow between producers and directors and trying to figure out what to cut, what to pursue. And I think Kevin Levine needs that, but he's maybe such a huge, well-known figure that there's no one to tell him no to anything. And so he can just kind of obviously keep proceeding with an endless budget from a game that was supposed to come out in 2017. But people like that, or you just need these well-known figures that can also be reined in and produce a product. And there's got to be this balance, and I don't think there's a balance happening here.
Yeah, I think it's there's clearly something going wrong, and I think kind of that the whole scope thing is something that anyone who's tried learning about game development is something that always ends up hitting you in the face. So it just shows that it can happen to anybody, and it's just not easy to get through these challenges. But like I said, he's every day can be like that for creative people, where it feels like you're just never going to make a breakthrough, and then you do. So he's going to be used to this kind of feeling, and hopefully, fingers crossed, just for those people that they get something out that they've been working on, and they can show what the kind of ambition is.
Yeah, I do. I'll give Kevin Levine some slack, where I can only imagine, like, coming off of properties like BioShock, the next property you're working on, people are going to absolutely be waiting for it and scrutinize it and going to want that same caliber of what BioShock was. So I'm sure he's like making, really just focusing on developing something that is that same level, so that it stacks up to that. So that's got to be a lot of pressure. Then you're right, where you have this studio that wants to make sure that they produce something at the end of the day and have something to show for it. They're on that article, they go further on some of the conversations between devs in the studio, and they have this term, it's like called Kenception, where they would try to make him think that he's thinking of an idea on his own to kind of get it through the system. Like they were trying to, almost trick him into like thinking, oh, I've decided on this route to go through, just to kind of guide him externally. And it sounded really interesting, but it's tough, man. I'm hoping that they produce something, and I'm just a huge fan of his games, and I want to see this thing. So I'm just also waiting for this game because I want to play it, but I'm hoping that they kind of have an idea on how to wrap it up.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I think at least, I guess the silver lining is it's putting eyes back on something that maybe nobody had given much thought to in a while.
Right, exactly. All right, Cal, we got the next one here. Naughty Dog dying to share its multiple game projects in production for PS5 and PS4. It's from pushsquare.com. During its CES 2022 keynote overnight, Naughty Dog co-president Neil Druckmann featured to talk a little bit about its collaboration with Sony Pictures and PlayStation Productions on the Uncharted movie. Druckmann closed with a brief tease, saying, "We're dying to share with you the multiple game projects we have in the works at Naughty Dog. We know the team is working on a standalone multiplayer adaptation of The Last of Us 2. While there are rumors it's also remaking the original game in the series. Outside of that, it's developing Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection for PS5. It's probably safe to assume it's in the prototype phase of something new to boot." So tied with that, we got this news update from Tom Henderson, who is kind of leaking various game stuff online. So he says, heard from multiple people now that the Last of Us remake is nearly finished and could release during the latter half of 2022. Tied with this also, Callum, is people debating, do we need a Last of Us remake, which we talked about when there's some of those rumors, but how do you feel about possibly getting a Last of Us remake for PS5 this year, and do you think we need it?
I don't know. I mean, I'll have to wait and see what it's like, I suppose, just because I can't imagine what it's going to be like and whether I would like it, because I still have a weird feeling that it's going to be like an adaptation of the series, if that makes sense. But I'm really not sure, because it does just seem like such a bizarre idea. So the only way I can justify it is if they are doing, like a Ratchet and Clank style. It's a remake of there's a series or a film based on the game, and then they've made a game based on that, series or film. So maybe it's something like that. But yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see, because it does seem like quite a strange choice.
Yeah, it's strange where this game has been rumored to be in development for a while, and it's changed hands from another studio to now back to Naughty Dog. So if it has been worked on for a bit now, if you compare this to the show, which this is probably going to launch kind of to promote, maybe in tandem with the HBO series, are they making this like the HBO series with the same characters, character models in their place, and the same story beats? But then this game's been in development for a lot longer, I imagine, than the show. So how are they linking up with getting the story beats the same for the remaster? We've seen issues with, like, say, Game of Thrones, with those being based on the books and having those issues of, is the story ready for this adaptation, and then deciding to go their own route at the end. So I wonder if this is just fully, remaster of all the same components of the original Last of Us, rather than just the kind of tied to the HBO show. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to help promote that HBO series. So I'm hoping that it launches this, around the same time. But I do want to see this, because I imagine, like, in this beefed up Naughty Dog engine that they use for Last of Us 2, seeing that with Last of Us 1, which isn't that old, but also just a fresh coat of paint, looking really great, I would still play that. So I'm on board with this.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be interesting, but I think as long as it's just going to be so odd, because you've got Last of Us 2, which is a sequel to the first Last of Us. So where does that then place Last of Us 2? Is it going to still make sense? Because then that would mean that the remake's going to be beat for beat the same as the first game. So it's just a really weird situation, and I think we can kind of maybe comment on it a bit better when we just know, like, what it is they're kind of going for, because it just sounds like such an odd plan. But you never know, maybe it's going to fit in some way, or be marketed or released in some way that makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've also heard rumors online of Last of Us 2 director's cut for PS5. We saw that with Tsushima, with Death Stranding. So I think it's fair to say that we'll see that with Last of Us 2, because that was such a huge property, such a huge release on PS4, which I'm kind of holding off on replaying, because I want to see that on PS5 with everything, all the bells and whistles, maybe some ray tracing. So I'm hopeful that releases this year too. So maybe this is a year of The Last of Us, just celebration, but I can't wait for more info. Now, Callum, we got the last one here. Sony reveals PlayStation tournaments coming soon to PS5. Sony SIE President and CEO Jim Ryan revealed during CES 2021 that PlayStation will soon offer a tournaments feature in an upcoming PS5 update. No further details were revealed, but with PlayStation acquiring the popular fighting tournament EVO last year, we could potentially see players allowed to join tournaments through PS5s, as well as watch live events. I don't think you're a big fighting game fan, but how do you feel about this integration of PS5 as a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it could be interesting, like an esport kind of functionality. So, I mean, yeah, like I said, it's not for me, but yeah, we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, if they can have you at least like people that want to watch this, they can jump in and watch live. And then if you can, from your home, jump into a tournament and could open it up to way more people joining this whole the whole esports thing, not having to travel and still being really good at whatever game from their couch, could be really cool. But yeah, it's not. I'm not a huge fighting game fan either. But yeah, it's nice that they're integrating this, and they bought Evo for a reason. It seems like to integrate that into PS5, PlayStation in general. But yeah, that is dope. I'm just terrible at fighting
Yeah,
games. I buy
yeah,
them every once in a while still. Like I bought the last Mortal Kombat knowing I suck, just because it's so pretty, but and horrifying. But yeah, had fun with it. I'm just terrible.
that's the thing that they always look great. I mean, Injustice
Yeah,
2 is it, and yeah, Mortal Kombat, and they all just look absolutely brilliant. I guess because it's such a focused like viewport for the player that they have so much time to really create a style and make sure everything looks and flow. I mean, it's always like the animation as well that is just really. They always seem to have like the top hand kind of animation, and they have to. So yeah, there's a part of me that wishes I was good at them because then I'd like them. But
yep,
for now, like you said, they just look nice. So sometimes that's the only reason I'll switch one on.
yeah, same. All right, Cam, we'll end it there for the week. Where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Bear Munro.
Awesome, and you can keep up the show on Twitter as well at Plastic Art Pod. That's it for us this week. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.
See you later.